where do you guys see these things going into 2021? Because I do think that there's, for some of us, maybe we've spent more time thinking about these topics and these issues. And for the people who maybe have been in a situation where they're like, well, I'll just ignore it. I'll go on my vacation, no big deal. And now they're realizing that, well, how interconnected everything is. So I guess, I'll start with you, Jen. Like, what do you think is going to happen in 2021? And also, how do you think people will evolve and maybe adapt from some of these things?
Well, we spoke about it in a previous conversation about how, you feel like people should just be like-minded on global topics, but they're just not, right? And I think this was a prime example. So to answer your question, so for instance, social media is a tricky thing. It makes you feel connected with a lot of people all at once, but for me, there's a lack of true connection. I don't care for it very much. I'm on social media more often for work. But what I hope is that when it's safe, that people value human connection again and reconnect and take the time to actually sit down and have those face-to-face conversations. I mean, like Madison said, we live in a world where technology makes things so easy. Zoom and FaceTime and all those things, they have their place. They're so great and so meaningful for a lot of reasons. But like even in the dating world even for friends, it's easier to just send a text than it is to call. You know what I mean? Yeah. So having the opportunity once again to be able to actually sit with the people that you care about, that's what I hope happens in 2021. I know that will be like one of my goals. And the other thing that it taught me is how precious my circle is. Because as you mentioned, when you don't have the right support system in place, whether that's friends, whether that's a partner, even colleagues at work, or a toxic work environment, all these things can affect, your bottom line, your mental well-being, right? And so I think that going into 21, just as a personal agenda, it would be to really be so much more protective of that space. So those would be my two takeaways, is to, try to stay off social media and the news and really just cultivate the environment that I really want to be in with the people that I want to be in it with.
Yeah. Brian?
I hate to sound cynical. I don't know if much is going to change that fast anyway. I mean, I think the country is so divided, whether it's on political issues, on, social issues, medical issues, and everyone's kind of dug their heels in and took their stance. And unfortunately, I don't know how much better it's going to get before. I think it might get worse before it gets better.
Yeah. Madison, your thoughts?
I mean, I hate to agree with Brian a little, but I understand that. Like, that's something I'm fearful of, and I'm trying to keep the blinders of hope. Like, no, I know good people that are gonna keep, pushing this movement. Or this, it shouldn't even be a movement. It should be, just a change, right? Progression, like you were saying. My hope for the new year would be that people are actually taking those conversations seriously, like Jen mentioned. Also doing your own education. I'm a huge promoter on self-education, reading podcasts, what have you. I think one thing that a lot of people realized was like, oh, I felt like I was an ally, whether it be, with the civil unrest or sexual identity, anything like that. There's been so many trans deaths, things like that, where people now felt like the pressure was on them to make a stance, right? To be like, oh, I support this, or I'm going to be indifferent, or that makes me uncomfortable, or what have you. For people that couldn't admit that Black Lives Matter, like that's absolutely insane to me. But I think it's really interesting that hopefully people take that and see that maybe they weren't giving as much as they thought to the progressive, pushing forward, and then they take some self-reflection and educate themselves in ways that they can. That definitely something I want to work on personally, and I hope others do as well. And yeah, it's interesting. I know Jen kind of brought up dating and things like that. Connections are so weird now, at least new connections.
Yeah.
And I think that's, hopefully there's better options for that, as far as taking connections from social media, meeting someone over social media, and potentially actually bringing them into your life. And if not, like Jen mentioned, also really just tighten it, keeping your tribe close, your group, and making sure they feel validated and supported in that. That's something that I'm going to definitely try and work on, and I hope others do as well.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be a little bit of like the kind of a geeky stat dude right now, and kind of go into, because I think what you guys are saying is true, but I'm such an optimist that I believe that, and I don't mean that things will change overnight. I don't think anything will change very quickly. But I was watching this thing. This guy Lewis Howes has this book called The Fourth Turning, and he basically just describes generational shifts. And he talks about how, let's say, when you grew up in the greatest generation, and those people were fighting in World War I and World War II. Well, their kids, the boomers, like they grew up with a different mentality, and their mentality was, well, we want to have love. Like, we've just experienced war for so long. We just want love. And that became kind of like the hippie generation. And then, we're kind of the products of that generation. And so that was the helicopter parent. Like, I love you. You're okay. Are you safe? Blah, blah. And we go, well, we want autonomy, right? And now the generations after us will probably be more like, look, like we want individualism. They're going to care more about healthcare. They're going to care more about the environment because, we didn't, and the generation before us really didn't, because we were trying to build. So I think, these moments are definitely, markers where, imagine if you're a 15-year-old, 18-year-old kid and you're growing up with COVID and you haven't been able to go to school or graduate or whatever it is. Imagine how much more you value that human connection as you kind of start your journey to being a 20, 30, 40-year-old person. And now you think about all of this very differently, because now you question, well, what does work mean if I can't spend time with friends and family? What does money mean if I'm not going to be able to share experience and travel? And I think this paradigm shift towards experiential things like an Airbnb over a hotel. It's like, I want to live where people live. I want to see what the real thing is. I don't want to just stay in this fancy hotel. Or being able to have these experiences where we're not just going to an amusement park. It's like, we want to experience a culture, a dinner, a thing, and have meaningful experience. I think that shift has been happening, but I think COVID will probably accelerate that. And then I think also, the previous point I brought up about the economy and the kind of wealth and inequality gap, I think that does make people become a little closer. And the initial reaction, I think, will be that it'll be infighting and like things like that, where it's going to be the rich versus the poor, and there's going to be this like, let's choose sides and get really angry. But at some point, it's going to be, I think it's going to be people understanding that we're all in this together. And it's more like that. Whereas we used to have these vast separations where we can feel like, well, I have a job, I'm doing okay. Like, those people, they're not like me. So when we see things on the news, social media, and then now we all know we're all going through some very similar things. And with more time of sharing online and social media, YouTube, people are able to actually see that, like, yeah, I'm not really alone, and I can find a tribe in a certain way. And that can be multiple tribes, whether that's a tribe of people who I spend time with having fun experiences, or someone I just share my personal life with, or finding a partner, or improving my dynamics with family and friends. But I think it'll take some time, but I'm pretty optimistic it will eventually get there.
This has been The Invested Life with Adam Khalil. Subscribe, like, comment, but most importantly, share the information you learned, and share the video with a friend or someone who you think might find value from it.